everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. If you watch the channel on a regular basis, you probably know that I've done some videos recently regarding how to generate reaction bites. One of the things I talked about was colors that can generate reaction strikes from inactive fish and how critical they can be. And when I did that video, I got several comments regarding the opposite of reactionary colors, but more of your natural colors. So I wanted to touch base with the reaction colors that I like to go with. I've got a very simple way I look at the natural colors, and my selection process is pretty straightforward. So I want to walk you through how I select my natural colors. I really only have about 3 different shades of color that I like to look at anytime I'm talking about natural colors. And what I mean by natural colors are they are much more laid back, toned down colors that are made to kind of match the hatch or meet the match the elements that the bait is being presented in. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and why I like to make the selections that I do and how I do think, or why I think it is pretty critical at times. The first and most important thing when talking about natural colors is they come into play much more frequently in clear water situations. And what I mean by that is because the water is so clear, not only is it more important that your bait blend in with the surroundings, it's also more important that it matches the hatch, as people like to say. And it's also important because a lot of times your bright colors that can generate some of your reaction strikes aren't necessarily going to be your friend in very clear colors or very clear waters. More specifically, when I choose my natural colors, so basically what I mean by natural colors is the majority of the time I'm fishing very clear water, I'm choosing a natural color, but I'm choosing it based on the surroundings. So specifically, if I'm fishing an area that's got a sand bottom, a lot of times I'm going to try to match that. If I'm fishing around wood, I'm going to try to match that. So some of the colors, and I'm not going to, get into like real specific colors because it's not as important from a exact color standpoint, but more of the hue of the color. Meaning, if I'm fishing around grass, I generally like to fish a green colored bait. And the reason for that is the majority of the grass is going to have a greenish hue. I personally like my bait to really blend in with the surroundings. And the reason for that is it does seem to generate more reaction strikes because a lot of times the bait will actually pop out of the grass in this instance. And because it takes the fish off guard, it therefore generates a good reaction strike from the fish. But if I'm fishing around grass, I generally like to fish something that's in that watermelon hue, sometimes the green pumpkin color. A lot of times the grass will start turning a little bit darker, and I feel like green pumpkin or watermelon is a much better color to go with in the first half of the year. And then as the grass starts to age and get to the point where it almost starts dying off, I find that green pumpkin works better because it actually blends in better with the stalks of grass, which start turning more of a brownish color. But generally speaking, if I'm fishing a grass lake or I'm fishing around grass, I'm throwing either a watermelon seed, some form of watermelon, or I'm throwing a green pumpkin. I really do think that's critical. Now, if I'm fishing around, like I said, sand, say I'm fishing the Great Lakes and I'm fishing some smallmouth flats, I absolutely love to blend in with the bottom. And that's where I like to go with your colors, your cinnamon colors like this, or some of your brown hues. It can be very critical to get the bait to match in with the bottom because, again, the fish don't get a good look at it. The generally speaking, in clear water, the more the fish can't determine what it is, the more they're willing just to slurp it up to try it. And this is one of my favorite baits for fishing sand and gravel flats is just a hula grub. This thing in a cinnamon color, it doesn't really matter what flake, again, depending on what flake you prefer, but the base color of cinnamon is absolutely a killer when you're fishing sand and gravel. It just is really good. But generally speaking, if I'm fishing rock, I like to go with darker colors because generally the rock has some form of bottom color to it. But if I'm fishing clear water where I've got clean rock and clean sand, this is what I'm going to be going with. Now, if I'm fishing open water, trying to mimic bait fish, obviously most people would say throw your pearls, throw your whites, and I agree with that. They still work great in clear water, but generally speaking, I really like to tone down my color selection for matching the bait fish. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you got to match the bait fish in terms of if it's perch, you got to throw a green colored bait. It really just comes down to toning down that bright pearl color into a more natural color. So in this instance, I do like to go with something more like this is a natural shad color that Yamamoto makes. It's almost like a translucent gray with a little bit of silver flakes. So when you see this in the water, this looks much more natural than a big pearl white bait would. So I do like in clear water to really tone down my bait fish imitating baits. The same can be said for if I am looking for a little bit of color, I'm going to throw something that's got a little bit more of that translucent look, a little bit more of, still have a pearl sheen to it, but it's not pearl white. This is one of my favorites. This is Pearl Watermelon. This is the little twitch tail minnow by Berkeley, just a killer drop shot bait. But in clear water, it doesn't stand out. It looks just like a basic minnow. It's a very toned down color for fishing clear water. The same goes for any of your translucent baits. This is just a smoke purple colored little mini tube. This thing is dynamite too, and a lot of it just comes into the fact that it really does a good job at not only mimicking a bait fish, but also when it's skittering along the bottom, does a good job at imitating a crayfish because it's leaving like a smoke cloud, but the fish doesn't get a real good look as to where it is. That's one of the keys. Like, you don't always need your baits to stand out. Now, in clear water, definitely there are times when your bright baits will generate a lot of strikes, but more times than not, you want more natural colors. You want to match the surroundings, you want to match the bait fish, but not really start glowing. You just want it to kind of blend in with the background. I really am a firm believer that that will lead you to getting more strikes. And generally speaking, you look at what you're fishing, you say the bottom's a brownish color, maybe you're flipping a bunch of laydowns, and that's where your browns and green pumpkins really can come into play. Maybe you're fishing around grass and you want more of your green pumpkin or your watermelons. And if you're fishing bait, definitely try to mimic the bait, but keep it really toned down. I can't say how critical that is. So when we're talking natural colors, generally that's how I approach it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I actually feel like choosing natural colors is much easier than choosing reactionary colors because the natural ones are so toned down that they can kind of blend in with a lot of the different surroundings. But that's how I look at it. Let me know, guys, do you have some colors that you love that are really good natural colors that you think maybe other people aren't familiar with? If you've got a couple of good ones, throw it in the comments section so we can learn from you guys as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.